Hi, everyone. Just letting you know we will get started in just a few moments. So if you are not hearing anything, that is A-OK. There's no sound right now, but there will be in just a few minutes. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Ashley Albrecht, and I will be your MC for the night. Thank you so much for joining us for our second ever St. Julian Wine and Girl Scout cookie pairing. We're going to start off with a quick message from Girl Scouts Heart of Michigan CEO Jan Barker, and then we'll kick off the Wine and Girl Scout cookie pairing.
Sorry, friends. Just one second.
Thank you for joining us for the wine and cookie pairing event. Girl Scouts Heart of Michigan is so very proud to be able to partner with St. Julian's to make the world a better place. A Girl Scout cookie is more than a cookie. It's a journey that a girl goes on to have her first entrepreneurial experience typically. It also is a vehicle so that girls can do fundraising that in turn turns into community service within their neighborhoods, schools, and communities. It can also be a big boost to some of our hometown heroes that families and girls donate cookies to. And like this event funds the activities that help girls learn all the competencies that will take them into leadership roles in their future. Thank you so much for helping girls become leaders of tomorrow and for caring about girls. Thank you and have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that inspiring message, Jan. Now I'd like to introduce our board chair, Katelyn Beaver.
Thank you, Ashley. I'm so excited to be a part of the gshom board and honored to recognize our members. Barb Henton, first vice chair, Nikki Gilliam, secretary, Dan Lear, treasurer, Susan Thorman, trustee, Pat Brazier, honorary board member, Tricia Kramer, trustee, Josh Geddig, trustee, Larry Hallman, trustee, Tom Kuslakis, trustee, Anita Maria Quillen, trustee, and Jan Warbinski, honorary board member, Georgia Foshik, trustee, Laura Bell, honorary board member, Jamie Ledow, trustee, and Casey Stevenson, trustee. Now I have the privilege of showcasing our wonderful sponsors that help make this event possible. These businesses are listed on the screen, plus in your event program. Please make an extra effort to support their establishments and to thank them for their support of Girl Scouting. Our signature sponsor is St. Julian Winery, yum. University of Michigan Credit Union, Martin Family Foundation, Dick and Norma Sarnes, Michigan Medicine, Lansing Board Water and Light, A.F. Smith Electric, Robert W. Jansen DDS and Associates, PC, Community Financial Credit Union, Emmons Service, the Fleas Agency, Comerica Bank, Bank of Ann Arbor, Chelsea State Bank, Potter Park Zoo, Phoenix Contractors, True Community Credit Union, Wildfire Credit Union, Lammers Heating and Air Conditioning, Paramount Coffee Company, Capital Steel and Wire. I'd also like to thank our in-kind sponsors, Jackson Magazine, JTV, Moxie Magazine, Kelsey Credit Union. Thank you so much again to all of our wonderful sponsors. Make sure to follow all of our sponsors on Facebook and frequent their businesses. I'm now going to hand it back over to Ashley to get the fun started.
Thank you again to all of the sponsors that helped make this event possible. We could not have done it without you. And now it is that time that we're going to get started pairing our delicious Girl Scout cookies with St. Julian wine. But before we start, I want to take a minute to introduce our fabulous wine specialist from St. Julian Winery, Brian Christopherson. Brian is a graduate of Michigan State University and has worked at St. Julian for a little over 4 years. He's originally from Jackson, Michigan, and so he started as a wine consultant and now oversees the shipping department at St. Julian. And he's the one that made sure everyone got their wine safely. So make sure your corks are popped, and take it away, Brian.
Thank you so much for that nice and generous intro. Just big thank you, obviously, to everyone who's on here today. Feel free, if you guys have any questions, to pop them in the chat so that way we can get that ball rolling and answer them as soon as we can. We got some feedback last year too that would be kind of fun to go over some of the basics of just wine tasting in general, because it's surprisingly not super common knowledge. So it's kind of, it may sound simple, but and it is, but it makes for a more enjoyable experience. So yeah, we'll kind of dive right into it. So in general, there are the 5 S's of wine tasting: see, swirl, sniff, sip, and savor. You might think this first one's kind of funny, but in reality, it makes a lot of sense. So when referring to see, it's specifically talking about the color and like the general appearance of a wine. So essentially, the color of the wine itself can give clues to the drinker of the varietal that it is, like how it was aged, a whole slew of different things, and even how old the wine actually is. So something as simple as holding your glass up to like a white surface and kind of observing how clear the wine is, what color it is. It can, like I said, it can tell you a lot about the wine you're tasting before you even do anything with your other senses. Swirl is probably one a lot of people are really familiar with. It is quite literal. So after you see it, you can swirl it around the glass, usually just simple motions to make the wine go around. So essentially what it does, it helps like aerate the wine. So you might hear the term like it helps a wine breathe every now and then. It introduces oxygen into the wine, so it actually opens it up a little bit too, and leads right into sniff, which is the 3rd S. Again, pretty self-explanatory. So after you swirl, you want to take a sniff, take a nice deep breath. Take it all in. Sometimes it takes multiple whiffs to get all of the profile of the wine itself. Very similar to C, where smelling the wine can give you, there's both tasting notes and aromatic notes. So sometimes they go together. Sometimes you get totally different things in the smell of a wine versus the taste, which is, so I've always found that quite fascinating, to be honest, because sometimes you can smell if a red wine is aged in, say, like a whiskey or bourbon barrel. More often than not, you can big time smell that whiskey and bourbon, which personally I find that fantastic. I love bourbon and whiskey, so I always love me a whiskey barrel red. Next is obviously probably the most fun part. So you take a sip. Generally, what you'll want to do, you want to let it sit on your tongue for a little bit too, so you can kind of take in the full flavor of the wine itself. Depending on the wine, I mean, you can taste different acidity, whether it's like soft or a little bit harsher. So obviously, wines that are in higher in acid are going to feel a little bit harsher because you have that little acid and then like the tingliness on your tongue. Softer wines, like a lot of barrel-aged wines, you'll get that feeling essentially because it comes from aging in the barrel, helps kind of relax some of that flavor. So I mean, it's probably one of the most fun times, one of the most fun aspects of the 5 S's. You can also feel the structure of a wine itself too. So after you let it sit, you swallow it, and that it comes into the savor aspect of it. So generally you can taste secondary flavors after you've already swallowed the wine. Again, it sounds kind of funny, but it's one of those things that like the more you do it, the more it kind of makes sense. It's one of those things where like if you go down this list, it doesn't have to take a long time. You see the wine, you assess the color, you swirl it, you smell it, then you take a sip, you savor. Pretty simple. So from here, we're going to go to the delicious tasting aspect. So each pairing itself is going to be paired with the dry wine with its cookie and the sweet wine with its cookie. We're going to lump those things together. So we're going to start off with the dry side. So our very first wine is our Braganini Reserve Blanc de Blanc. It is definitely our premier sparkling champagne wine. It is absolutely amazing. Made from Chardonnay grapes. It is fermented in the bottle. It is our only sparkling wine that is actually fermented in the bottle. by the the super traditional champagne method. It's absolutely incredible. It's high acid, so you get a lot of like your apple flavors and pear. And it's honestly kind of a perfect mixture, like perfect pairing with the toffee. You get a lot of just the flavors of themselves just totally complement each other. So one thing I highly recommend when doing really any pairings of any form, is you'll want to follow the 5 S's. So tasting being the big aspect of this too. So you'll want to taste the wine itself. Then I would suggest take a bite of the cookie. Because you can kind of see how, so you let the wine flavor sit in your mouth first. Then when you take a bite of the cookie, you can kind of feel and see how those two blend together. Then the third step, again, part of the fun, is tasting the wine again and seeing how it changes. So it's really interesting pairing with like something that's sweet with a drier wine, because typically, relatively counterintuitive, the sweet thing when it comes to food and wine, the sweet item makes the wine taste more intense, and will often like bring out some of the small amounts of leftover sugar in the wine out more, so it'll actually taste a little bit sweeter, which is really a really fun way to taste wines as well. So for our sweet drinkers, our first wine up is our Sweet Nancy. It's one of our other sparkling wines. It's a residual sugar of about 4%. So it is kind of in that borderline semi-sweet, semi-dry category. It's a really, really nice sparkling wine. Completely on its own, obviously, is really fun. But then we've also utilized it in our mimosa bars here. Makes a really good, sweeter mimosa. So with the Sweet Nancy, we've paired it with the lemon ups. With the Sweet Nancy, you'll get a lot of like pineapple and peach flavors with some citrus, specifically flavors of mango. Again, the citrus aspect of Sweet Nancy pairs very well with obviously citrusy cookie in the lemon ups, which is really awesome. So obviously, again, take a sip of the wine. See how it feels in your palate. Tastes, I love bubbles, so this is always a good one for me. Then we take a bite of our cookie. Obviously, they pair very well. Like you get high elements of citrus in both. And again, another taste of our wine. So good. Like you honestly, after you take a bite of the cookie and then take another swig of the Nancy, you get way more citrus. Like the lemon just pops more out of the cookie. Just again, just kind of a delightful fascination I've always found with like food and cookie and like food and wine pairings, how drastic the changes can be sometimes. All right. So this is our first pairing, obviously quite delicious. So a lot of times people are questioning like, well, how do you go between different things? So when you're tasting multiple wines, it's always good to do something to cleanse your palate. So you can do this a wide variety of different ways. Probably the absolute most effective way is to pick, it sounds really funny, but the blandest like cracker or bread you can possibly imagine. Essentially what this does is it's basically like taking an eraser to a chalkboard. So like once you eat those, like we used to serve these little pita style crackers in our tasting room. Excellent palate cleansers. They tasted really nice, but they were very neutral. So one of the big key things that I think a lot of people don't realize is when you're using crackers, you don't really want flavored crackers. Even something with salt can disrupt the actual cleansing of your palate. Because again, it's a flavor that you'll obviously taste something versus something that's just basically gonna clear off all the flavors that were on your tongue. Another obviously very simple but slightly less effective way is just to take a sip of water. Because again, it's a liquid that helps like kind of literally wash away all the flavors that are on your tongue. There's a wide variety of ways you can do it, but like a very simple, like a piece of bread, a very bland cookie, or just a simple sip of water are the easiest way to cleanse that palate. And with that being said, we are going to go to our second pairing. So one of the other things we like to do here in the winery when we're doing a lot of tastings is to cleanse the glass. Some people scoff at it, which is always thoroughly entertaining to me, is we rinse our glasses out with the wine you're about to taste. So basically what that does is it's kind of like cleansing the palate for the glass itself. So you're erasing the previous wine with your wine you're about to taste. So that way the wine you're about to taste is already in there. So with our second dry pairing, we have our Braganini Reserve El Mourinho. It's our 2020 vintage. Honestly, I've been working here since 2018, and I've seen many, many vintages of El Mourinho. This far and away is probably my favorite. It is 2020, as crappy as it was for a whole other bunch of other reasons. It was absolutely amazing for us in the grape industry here in Michigan. We had absolutely spectacular weather for the harvest, and virtually everything that's come out of our 2020 vintage has been wonderful. El Mourinho is definitely part of that as well. So with this, you get a lot of, like, on this nose, you get a lot of citrus. You get like some apple, a little bit of pear, and like lemon zest, which is perfect to pair with the lemon ups. So again, sip of the wine first. So wait to take a bite of our cookie. So good. And one more sip of the wine. Again, very similar to the Sweet Nancy for the drier side with El Mourinho. I mean, once you take a bite of the cookie and then the second sip of the wine, a lot more of the lemon comes out. And again, it's due to the nature of the varietal of El Mourinho, which is a very citrusy varietal. It's high in acid, so it's one that like totally makes your mouth water. Which is I've always found fascinating too, when you can have a wine that has very little to zero sugar left in it, can make your mouth water, and that's just due to the high acid nature of El Mourinho. Again, probably the best vintage of El Mourinho that we've been doing here at least in my time. We haven't even been doing it for that long, just kind of in general, which is really fun. On the sweet side, we've got our Braganini Reserve Late Harvest Vignoles. A very one that is definitely can be an acquired taste. It is really tasty. You get a lot of your darker stone fruit flavors out of this one. So with Vignoles, you get a lot of like golden raisin and apricot, and a lot of like baked peach are some of the like intense flavors that you'll get out of this wine. Late harvest, it is quite literal. So essentially with late harvest wines, you wait later in the harvest to pick them. And there's actually even a lot of specifics that you have to go through in order to classify a wine as late harvest. So like when it was harvested is like there's a certain date range, and you have to catalog all of that. Like you have to verify it basically with like the weather service. It sounds really intense, and it is. So that's why you see like late harvest, you come across a lot, but you don't see them all the time. So again, we'll do our delicious tasting here. Yeah, you get a lot of, you get a lot of peach, a lot of apricot. We'll do their tasting. Nice, intensely sweet wine. I believe this one hovers around like a 8 or 9% residual sugar. So it is quite sweet. But yet again, be a lot more like with the toffee tastics. Sorry, that was our pairing for this one. You get a lot more, like the toffee really pops, which is really nice. You can really taste a lot of the flavors that are in the cookie itself that pair really nicely with the wine. And specifically, you get a lot more, like peach really jumps out after you take a bite of the cookie and then take another sip of the wine. A lot of pineapple too, which is relatively uncommon when it comes to some sweeter white wines. It's a very specific flavor, and typically you only really ever see that in late harvest wines. Yeah, so those are our first two pairings. Again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat, and we'll get them answered. And yeah, that is our first round of delicious pairings. I will throw it back to you, Ashley.
Thank you, Brian. Next, we have a short video that gives a glimpse of the magic that girls experience in Girl Scouting.
Every single time I leave Girl Scouts, I want to come back. I feel like that Girl Scouts should be an option for every single girl, even though you feel like you're alone in like school, and because nobody wants to be your friend or anything, you have friends at Girl Scouts.
I've always wanted to be in Girl Scouts. I started in second grade, I think. I thought it'd be fun, and now I'm in Girl Scouts. It's better than I even thought.
Getting into Girl Scouts, I thought it would be a lot of, crafts and painting and activities, things like that, but I've learned that it is so much more about building these girls and helping them with their self-esteem, with problem solving, with just growing as people, planning their futures, and really just becoming the best friends they can be.
I have made many friendships in Girl Scouts.
And I'm so blessed to be a little part of their lives. They are hilarious, and they are strong, and they question things, and they want to build things and be part of their community and build their community. Each one of them has such a beautiful little personality, and what they contribute to this troop is incredible.
Girls who aren't in Girl Scouts, I think, are missing a lot of opportunities to gain confidence by learning about different career fields. There's so many STEM badges that we do with, mechanical engineering, robotics, coding, male-dominated fields that, might open their eyes to say, hey, this is actually fun and interesting. I want to do this. Opportunities to engage with the community, make the world a better place, become creators of the world they want to see. And I think that builds a strong sense of self and a lot of self-esteem.
I have a lot of memories. I'm not sure if I have a favorite. I probably have a bunch of favorites, but our troop went camping and it was a lot of fun. I like to go to camp. I like to go to camp, and I like having friends.
The research tells us over the last several years that being in the great outdoors is so important for our mental health, for reducing anxiety, for reducing symptoms of depression. And anxiety and depression are up in girls. Girl Scouting truly is one of the most powerful experiences that a girl will ever have. Getting girls involved in this program is truly like unlocking a door to a future filled with success.
These girls are just amazing. You can support girls just like this that you saw in the video today by going to gshom.org and clicking donation. And now we are going to get back to our pairing. So take it away, Brian.
All right. So I was kind of going to go over a few other things about St. Julian as a winery itself. So we are officially 100 years old. Well, now 101. Last year, we actually celebrated our 100th year anniversary. We debuted a lot of really, really cool things. A lot of it's just been amazing to see how much this place has changed, just even in the short period of time I have been here. We've been completely family owned since our inception. We are now officially on to our third and fourth generation owners, with John Bregennini and then Apollo Braganini. Our founder, Mourinho, he started us way back in 1921, initially in Ontario, Canada, because unfortunately that was one of the sad times where we had prohibition going on. So it was a little bit difficult to sell and make wine in the United States. Thankfully, we moved over here in 1936 in our present location in Paw Paw. Before we were over here, though, we were actually we were just outside of Detroit area for a little while. But the biggest thing there is we were actually getting a lot of our grapes from this west side of the state over here, like in Kalamazoo area. The downside of, obviously, back in the day, there wasn't very good refrigeration. And so a lot of times the grapes on their way over to the Detroit area would start to ferment and just go rotten by the time they would get there, which is why we moved officially into this location in 1936. And that is when we officially changed our name to St. Julian from the Marconi Wine Company. We also had a name of the Italian Wine Company. Yet again, more history. The whole World War II thing, that was not really not a friendly name here in the U.S. at the time. So that's when he officially changed it to St. Julian. There's just so much history here, like in this building specifically, because like we have been literally in the same position, like the same physical building since 1936. Before we took it over, it was an ice house. So essentially they would carve big giant chunks of ice out of Lake Michigan and house them here. At one point there was a railroad track that went right through the middle of our big complex here. And we've expanded so much, obviously, just in our time here, considering we've been in this specific building for about 80 years or so. So yeah, like I said, we're on our third and fourth generation of the Braganinis, and it's going to continue to be in the family until, as far as I'm aware, it'll probably always be in the family, which is really amazing. Something you don't see a lot of times, unfortunately, with companies that have been around for so long. We're the most awarded and the largest winery in the state of Michigan. We're continuously adding products left and right. It seems like it never ends, which is obviously a fun problem for us because we get to keep trying new things and answering all kinds of questions. And it is a very amazing place to work. It's very family oriented for literal reasons, and it's a great winery. All right. So a little bit of history on our company here. Like I said, we've been around for quite some time, making wine for 100 years. It's awesome. All right, so we'll move on to our third pairings for our 4-bottle people. So with that, we will go start with our dry pairing. So we have our Coastline Red. It has had many names. It was called Founders Red at one point. It was called Reserve Red. The basic blend itself has remained virtually the same the entire time, just kind of going through updates as a lot of products do. Still remains a really delightful wine that is not expensive and is available to everybody. It's very simple, but also tastes complex. It sounds very odd, but that's just how she works. So with this one, you'll get a lot of like dark cherry and vanilla, even some like, it sounds very weird, but like cola is one of the tasting notes, or one of the aromatic notes that you'll get out of it, which makes it a surprisingly good pairing for the Samoa cookie. So the dark cherry, a little bit of chocolate, are good blend with the caramel and coconut of the Samoa. You know, my job's really hard sometimes. Yeah, I mean, you get a lot more. I think the vanilla pops a little bit more too after you taste the cookie back to the wine. It just again, like the sugar of the cookie surprisingly only adds to a dry wine, especially like a dry red wine. It's one of those things that's just like the more you do it, the more it makes sense, and then also continues to make zero sense whatsoever. So a lot of times you'll hear, like when you're pairing different like foods with certain wines, a lot of people seem to get stuck in a box. Essentially, it's like, well, if I'm having a red sauce pasta, I have to have a dry red. Why? You can have whatever you want. It's honestly all based on personal preference. Yes, there are some stuff that makes more sense, but ultimately it's whatever you decide to choose. Some people love a nice heavy red with fettuccine Alfredo, and that's perfect because there's still a lot of flavors that will complement each other from both the wine and the pasta itself. So with that, we'll go on to our sweet drinkers. So our brand new, ridiculously named PB&J wine. So it is quite literal. It is one that baffles people every single time they come into the winery. It sounds so bizarre, and it tastes exactly like it sounds. So it is a Concord-based wine with peanut butter flavoring. The one of the actually really cool parts about this particular wine is that it is completely allergen free. So even with people with nut allergies can drink PB&J wine and enjoy the delicious flavor of peanut butter with a wine. So immediately once you smell the wine, you'll smell the peanut butter right away. It's a very intense smell, but underneath it you can smell the jelly. Always makes me chuckle every time. Obviously, the pairing with this makes the absolute most sense with tagalongs, because you have like chocolate and peanut butter with peanut butter and jelly. Natural pairings. Personally, tagalongs are probably one of my favorite cookies. PB&J, the first time I tried it, I was very pleasantly surprised. So it's really fun. So like obviously a PB&J, which is just something that most people love. We grow up eating it. I had some for dinner the other night. It's delicious. In a wine form, it's just as fantastic. What's crazy about the wine itself, so you get the peanut butter flavor, you have the jelly from the grapes, and there's even like a tinge of like breadiness. And so it's like part of the yeasty aspect of the fermentation process. So you get all three elements of the peanut butter and jelly sandwich in one wine itself. And it's perfect. combination with the tag-alongs, because the chocolate actually just molds right in there with all the flavors, and so it almost tastes like you're eating like a chocolate covered peanut butter cherry almost. It's a lot of things going on at once, but it actually works out so incredibly well. This is probably one of the most natural pairings that we've done in pairing almost anything I've witnessed here at the winery, which is really amazing. So we have a question of what is my recommendation for a grilled cheese sandwich? Of the wines we actually have here, weirdly enough, I would probably recommend either Blanc de Blanc or late harvest Vignoles. Again, kind of the same thing with the Blanc de Blanc. With a sparkling wine like these, you typically will get some like amount of yeast in the flavor profile, which would surprisingly pair really well with really any sandwich, but grilled cheese specifically. And then the Vignoles, I mean, if you're pairing a nice and like a very delightfully simple cheddar, I mean, you've got sweetened cheddar. I mean, that just sounds like a really good recommendation to me. So those would be ones I'd recommend. Outside of that, probably a good Chardonnay would actually be really, really well with a grilled cheese. Again, kind of the same basic concept. I mean, this is made from Chardonnay grapes. It just happens to have bubbles. So regular Chardonnay would actually be really well too, because you'd probably get a lot more of the buttery aspects of a barrel-aged Chardonnay would come out and pair really nice with a grilled cheese. Again, you get some weird questions, but we love answering them, and I love me some grilled cheese too. I mean, really, you could do coastline red with grilled cheese too, especially if you're having some tomato soup. It'd be quite delicious. Yeah, so I did mention this, we're on a little bit of a delay too, but yeah, definitely I'd say my favorite Girl Scout cookie is far and away the tag-alongs. I was, the first time I tried a Samoa, I was actually very pleasantly surprised. I don't know why. It was one I had not really thought of because I'm generally not a big coconut fan, but I've definitely grown into it, in the caramel chocolate, and it just all blends together so very well. All right, so we will move on to some more history. So being around for 100 years, we have a whole slew of different products. Obviously, we're most well known for wine, but we have a whole bunch of other delightful things. So we have well over 100 different products between our wine, spirits, juices, and hard ciders. Our juices, I mean, I grew up drinking those, like literally we would call it kid wine. I mean, it's nice, sweet, bubbly, non-alcoholic juice. It is excellent for kids. I mean, we have people ask all the time, are kids allowed to come in? Absolutely. We have 6 different flavors to choose from. Our traditional red and white grape. We also have peach passion fruit, blueberry pomegranate, raspberry, and our wild berry. Honestly, they're all really good for kids, and they're great for adults too, because you throw in a few of our fantastic spirits into them and you have yourself a really, really good cocktail. At this point, we have a very large category of spirits to choose from. Again, since I've been working here in 2018, we started with, let's see, it was 3 brandies, a vodka, gin, and rum. And that was it. Now we are up to so many things. We have, oh my gosh, we have 5 or 6 different vodkas. We have a vodka from cherries, vodka from grapes, strawberry lime flavored, blackberry flavored, cucumber, and lemonade. In our rum category, we have straight up silver rum, we have pineapple rum, coconut rum, and we have mango rum. We are currently out of it, but we do make a spiced rum as well, which is very vanilla heavy. It is quite fantastic. Our brandy, we have like original, just traditional grape brandy. We also make an apple and a cherry brandy. We've made grappa, which essentially is the easiest way to describe it is like an Italian tequila. I've actually made a margarita with grappa before, and it is virtually the same flavor. It is really awesome. We have made multiple whiskeys and bourbons. Currently, we debuted our Centennial Bourbon last year. It is a 5-year aged bourbon. It is absolutely incredible. Even with our cask strength, which clocks in at around a 57%, I believe. It's an intense bourbon, but it is also crazy smooth for being as hot as it is. Get a lot of caramel, toffee notes out of that one. A little bit of vanilla. It is fantastical. We also do a wide variety of different ciders. Well, again, when I first started, all we had was original and cherry. We did have a seasonal cinnamon-based one. Does not currently exist, but we have since then debuted our black and blue cider, which is far and away our most popular. Then I think it was the following summer, we debuted a watermelon cider and a pineapple rosé. Both are incredibly refreshing summertime ciders. We also have one that is currently in distribution, our peach cider. It is very, very good. They're all relatively sweet with the exception of the original apple, which is just like a nice, perfectly like crisp apple cider. They're all so good. I mean, you can find almost everything we make in the stores, including our ciders. And we will, in the near future, you will be able to purchase a lot of our spirits we're in outside of the tasting rooms as well, because we're actually going to start distributing those, which is really, really cool to see that. I've seen so much growth in this company just in the 4 years I've been here. We've, I think at this point, double or tripled our tank space. So we actually added 4 75-foot, 70,000 gallon towers into our production, which will house a lot of like the base for a lot of our wines, i.e. it'll house like wines like Sweet Revenge, which is our most popular wine, most widely distributed wine. Things like Simply Red, which is a wonderfully perfect semi-sweet, semi-dry table red. I've witnessed countless hiring here. We have it feels like we always need people both in the tasting room and our production because we are just continuously expanding. In my time here, we had basically completely renovated one of our warehouses, which is basically the size of 2+ football fields, and it just houses wine that we use for our distribution. It is quite crazy how much we've grown just in the couple of years I've been here, let alone the 100 years of our existence. I highly recommend checking out one of the tasting rooms. We're located all over the state. We have 3 over here on the west side in Union Pier, which is outside of New Buffalo, here in Paw Paw. And then we also have one on the north side of Grand Rapids in Rockford. We also have 3 on the east side of the state here in Michigan in Frankenmuth. We have one in Troy on 14 Mile. Then we also have one in Dundee, which is right by the Cabela's that's over there. Each room we specialize in all kinds of things. Like each room has their own tasting menu from our selection of wines. We do different cocktails at each places. I'm one of our cocktail masters here, so I design our cocktail menu. I try to feature proof syrup. It's this really amazing stuff. It makes really, really good tasty cocktails, and they have a whole slew of flavors that I've tried to integrate into our cocktail menu. Every place has different events. Like we have our patio kickoff party here in Paw Paw this coming weekend, where we partner with a lot of local places. We're partnering with the Grazing Table this year. We're carrying their charcuterie boards in the tasting room, and they're also going to be at our patio kickoff party making boards here on site this coming weekend and also in the future too. So I mean, it's a really fun way. It's a good fun place to come for a date night. It's a good fun place to just hang out with some friends or just to chill and grab a glass of wine. So that's kind of some more history and everything. We did have a gin. It has since been discontinued, unfortunately. I really hope it comes back, but I don't know if it will. it's one of those things where you try some stuff out. Sometimes it doesn't work out so well. Who knows? Anything is possible these days. I've seen things that were supposedly dead that have come back in a couple of years. So if no, a lot of times it's really cool because we listen big time to people in their inquiries. So, for example, this wine called Razzed, it was this sweet raspberry flavor wine that also had a tinge of chocolate. So essentially the easiest way to describe it is it was like a Tootsie Pop in the sense where you get all of your fruity goodness first and then you get chocolate at the very end. And that was one that we had debuted a few years ago. There's enough people saying, hey, please bring this back. It was amazing. And we did a run earlier this year. I've seen that. I've actually seen that multiple times now, which is really cool. So that is one where I encourage you, if you had loved a product that you don't see anymore, shoot us an email, give us a call. We are always listening because we are here to make products for everybody. Yeah, it's great. All right, so we will, with that being said, we'll move on to our final pairings here. So on the dry side, we have our Braganini Reserve Merlot. It's our 2018 vintage. Merlot is probably one of my favorite reds just in general, and one that we do here. It's very earthy. It can have high levels of tannin, but not always. Just depends on the vintage. The 2018 Merlot is very, very smooth. The tannins aren't very sharp, thankfully. We do get a lot of plum, a lot of black cherry. So a lot of times in red and like darker, heavier reds, you'll see black cherry, versus in some lighter reds, you'll see like red cherry or Bing cherry specifically. If you've ever tried both of those fruits by themselves, there is a very big difference. Personally, I like black cherries more. I think they have a little bit more flavor, and you get a lot more of that in our dry reds here. So with our Merlot, we have the tagalongs. Love these cookies, so good. It's one that's like kind of counterintuitive, where you would not think that peanut butter would meld really well with the dry red. In this case, it absolutely does. The peanut butter actually brings out some of the fruity aspects of the Merlot, while kind of helping to not necessarily hide, but soften some of the more earthy aspects. It's really nice. Obviously, Merlot itself is really tasty in addition to the cookie. All right, with our final sweet drinkers, we have our Celera Cream Sherry. So this is our most awarded wine. It is classified as a dessert wine. So in this case, our Celera Cream Sherry, a dessert / dessert wines in general. They're what I call fortified wines. So it is a grape-based wine that has been infused with brandy. And so with the dessert wines, they're generally very, very sweet. They're very intense, and because of the brandy, they're also very high in alcohol content. So traditionally with dessert wines like sherries and ports, you typically eat them with dessert, hence partially the name. And usually you'll want to pair them with something that's also very sweet. Because a lot of times what you'll want to do is when you're pairing wines traditionally, with some exceptions, obviously here a little bit different too. When you're pairing sweet things, you'll want the wine to be sweeter than the thing you're eating. Basically what this does is that way the food does not totally disrupt the wine that you're drinking. So you're able to appreciate both things, which is really cool. So it also, traditionally you'll see them in these little cordial glasses. Basically, it just looks like somebody took a shrink ray to a traditional wine glass. one of the main reasons for that is because when you're drinking dessert wines, you shouldn't, and B, you probably don't want a large amount of that, because they're very, like I said, they're incredibly sweet. They're also very high in alcohol. So that is many reasons. So the sherry, you get tons of vanilla and caramel, which is obviously a perfect pairing for the Samoa cookie, which has lots of caramel in it. Such a good pairing. So when you take a bite of the cookie and you take a little bit more of the sherry, you'll notice that everything just like intensifies. So obviously, like the caramel, the butterscotch, they intensify a lot more from the sherry when paired with the sugary caramelness of the cookie itself. It's a very interesting, and then obviously you get a lot of the fruit side of it as well. So personally I notice like peach and apricot are some of like the prominent flavors that come out of the sherry itself. And it's just, again, it's one of those where the wine takes the cookie and just gives it a big old hug. It's one of the most easy pairings that we've probably ever done, other than like the PB&J and the tag-alongs. They're two wines that just pair perfectly with their cookies, which is obviously why we chose them. Yeah, I mean, it's one where you can. Cream sherry is also really good with things like cheesecake, because a lot of the characteristics you get out of it, like you'll get a little bit of almond and butterscotch, even a little bit of hazelnut too. Yeah, I mean, it's an incredibly delicious wine. It's our most awarded wine. It seems like it brings home a whole truckload of awards every single year. It is one that's actually it's a crazy process. So essentially, it's constantly layered in with previous vintages of the sherry. So essentially, what it does is like we'll empty a barrel halfway, fill it up with the previous vintage, and then we'll continue that process over and over and over again. So essentially, it's continuously being stacked on. We've been doing that process since the 1970s. Our port is the same exact thing, where we'll empty a barrel halfway, we'll fill it all the way up with the previous vintage, empty that one halfway, previous vintage, continue, and so on and so forth. It is a really cool way to continuously blend it. And traditionally, you will rarely ever see a vintaged port or sherry. And when you do, it means that particular vintage is spectacular. And I highly recommend you get it. Again, because they're almost always blends, but they are continuously evolving with the flavor being virtually the same every time. It is quite incredible how that works. There's a lot of chemistry and science in winemaking, most of which is over my head, but I'm slowly starting to learn bits and pieces. One of the fascinating parts about working here is like, if you have a question about something, more often than not, somebody's going to be here that can answer it for you, which is just fascinating and something I feel like you don't see a lot of places. But yeah, so with that concludes our pairing side of things. Obviously, enjoy the wines with a whole bunch of other foods. I highly recommend experimenting with different cookies, different foods, different chocolates. You might be surprised at what works with each wine, and some stuff that doesn't work, but that's part of the whole experimentation process that makes it a lot more fun too. Thank you so much, and feel free to keep shooting those questions if you guys have them, and I'll turn it back over to Ash.
Thank you so much, Brian, for guiding us through the pairing. I personally love hearing about the history. I think that's so cool to see how far you guys have come in all of those years. So we will be partnering with St. Julian again this fall with our Girl Scouts Treats and Reads. We'll be pairing wine with the nuts. So stay tuned for more information on that. Kits will be going up for sale in mid-July. And now I'm going to bring Kate back to the screen to wrap us up for the night.
Thank you all for attending the second St. Julian Winery and Girl Scout cooking pairing event. Brian, happy 101st anniversary to St. Julian Winery. You have a tough job, but I love it. I think it's great. It's never too late to make a donation. Remember to go to gshom.org, click on donate, and then non-donate now. I know personally I donate monthly. They automatically run my card without me having to do anything. It's beautiful. We appreciate all of you who participated tonight and all of you who bought the wine and pairing kits. I hope you had a wonderful time and explored new wines and had new adventures with cookies and wine. I don't have to tell you to drive home safe tonight as you are all at home. So I will say have a wonderful night and thank you for supporting Girl Scouts Heart of Michigan. Good night.